Значит, сегодня я хочу поделиться о
Today I
том,
want to
что
share
было важно для Христа,
about what was important
рассказать
for
одну притчу,
Christ.
которую Он рассказал.
It was a parable he had told.
Сказал также им притчу о том,
Then he spoke a
что
parable
должно
to them
всегда
that
молиться
men
и не
always ought
унывать.
to pray and not lose
Люди, в
heart.
век уныния,
Do you see this age of
когда вот какие
losing
признаки века
heart?
уныния вообще?
It has
Вот
symptoms.
когда мы сегодня видим, вот в чем век уныния.
For example,
Не то, что там мало
today we are
радости,
able to
а
watch it. It's not that there is
извращенный
little joy,
Когда смех
but
покупается
the
за деньги.
laughter is
Сегодня
distorted.
появились
The
новые
laughter is bought for
площадки,
money.
где надо дорого
And
платить,
new
чтобы поржать.
sites are
Чтобы
appearing,
посмеяться над
springing
плохими
up,
вещами.
where you have to pay much
Смеяться над людьми.
in order to laugh.
Кощунство.
Laugh at people,
И за это
laugh
надо
at
платить
bad
большие
things,
деньги. Это
blaspheme.
век уныния.
And you have to pay a lot
за
for
смех
that.
надо
That's the
платить. И
age
платить
of
дорого.
losing your heart. When you have to pay to
Смех над
laugh
святынями.
and pay much,
Над
it's
тем, на чем раньше
expensive.
даже люди
Laughter,
боялись
mocking
поднять свой
things,
голос. Сегодня
holy
над этим
things,
смеются.
sacred things that people used to be
Сегодня Христос сказал такую притчу, что
fearful
должно
to raise their
всегда
voice
молиться.
above, but today it's
Всегда,
all
в
available.
любое
So he
время.
says
И
this
не
parable
унывать.
that we
Именно
ought
вот
to
эта
pray
позиция
and not lose heart,
молитвенной
and such
радости,
an attitude of
молитвенного
joyful
позитива,
prayer,
этого
of
оптимизма
prayerful joy,
даст нам
of
силу сохранить
optimism.
себя от уныния.
It will give
От
us
тотального
strength
космического
to keep
уныния, которое
ourselves
живет нас всю
from this
Знаете,
losing
когда
our
тайфун
hearts,
охватывает
total
океан
cosmic
или острова,
losing heart.
цунами
When a
захватывает
typhoon
всё,
comes
невозможно видеть солнце.
on some islands
Потому
or
что,
coasts,
это состояние,
you cannot see the
состояние
sun
мира,
because this is
когда
the
нет
condition
надежды,
of
нет
the
радости,
nature,
нет
condition
Христа
of
в
the
народе.
world, where is no
И нету
hope,
и
no joy,
радости.
no Christ
Поэтому это
in the
естественно,
nations.
что
Therefore, there
народы
is no
находятся в
joy.
унынии. Поэтому
So
они
it's
покупают
natural
смех за
that
деньги,
nations are
они делают
losing
его
their hearts
искусством
and buying
и продают
laughter, buying joy for
грязным,
money, make it
мерзким,
artificial and selling it for
нечистым смехом.
dirty things,
Но это не
disgusting
та радость,
laughter,
которая
disgusting
доставляется.
joy.
После
It's
такого
not the
смеха
joy
человек
that we
чувствует
should
себя
have.
опустошенным,
You feel
оскверненным,
exhausted and devastated,
обокранным.
defiled,
Это не та радость, которую должна иметь Церковь Божья.
robbed after such kind of
Поэтому Христос
laughter,
сказал,
and
третий
this
раз
is not the joy the Church of Christ
что нам
must have.
должно
So I
всегда
say
молиться
third
и
time,
не унывать.
Christ says that
Вот
we
эта
always
духовность
ought to
сохранит
pray and not lose
извращенной
heart.
радости,
This
от
spirituality
ложной
will
радости,
keep us from
настоящей
perversion,
чистой
from false
божественной
things,
радости.
in the true, pure, real joy
Дальше
of
он продолжает
God.
притчу и говорит, говоря, в
Then
одном городе
he
был судья,
continues saying, there was in a certain city a judge
который Бога не боялся, и
who did not
невинных
fear
судил.
God nor regard man.
В том же городе была одна
Now there
вдова,
was a
и
widow
она,
in that
приходя к нему,
city,
говорила,
and she
защити
came to
меня
him
от
saying,
соперника
get
моего.
justice for me from my adversary.
Но он долгое время не хотел.
And he would not for a
А
while.
после сказал сам себе, долгое время это
But
сколько? 10
afterward,
лет,
he
20?
said within himself, afterward is how
Ну, сам
long?
решай.
10 years, 20 years? You
Долгое
decided
время не
yourself.
хотел.
But afterward, he said, a while. He
А после
wouldn't.
сказал сам себе,
And then he
хотя я и
said
Бога
within
не боюсь,
himself,
и
though I
людей
do
не
not fear
стыжусь,
God nor regard man,
но как эта вдова не дает мне покоя, защищу
yet
ее,
because
пока
this
она не
widow
придет, чтобы
troubles
она не
me, I
приходила
will
больше
avenge
к
her,
мне.
lest by her continual coming she weary me.
Вот я немножко остановлюсь здесь, потом продолжим.
I will
Немножко
stop
осталось.
here and I will continue.
Вдова. Очень интересный образ.
The widow
Мы иногда говорим
is
про
a very
такую прекрасную
interesting
невесту,
image.
там, да?
We
Прекрасная
often
невеста,
speak
это
about
церковь,
beautiful
ну, всегда
bride.
приятно, когда
The
церковь
bride is the Church of Christ. It's
вдова.
always so nice and pleasant. But a widow
Это его народ.
is his
И
people.
часто в Библии, в Исаии,
And
в других
often
пророках
case
Бог
in the
упоминает
Bible, in
Израиль
Isaiah and
как вдову.
other prophets, God speaks of Israel
Он
as of a
говорит, что ты
widow.
оставленная.
And
Или
he speaks
покинутая.
you, abandoned one,
И он упоминает ее как вдову.
left one, and he
Если мы
speaks of
сегодня
her as of
рассмотрим
a
вдову вот
widow.
эту как церковь,
If today we take and look at the church as a widow that comes to the earthly authority.
смотрите, что такое вдова? Она потеряла мужа, у
Look,
нее
what
нет
is a
мужа, у
widow?
нее нет
She's
Христа.
lost her husband.
Церковь
No
без
husband,
Христа.
no
Это то, что
Christ.
предсказывал Муди.
Church without Christ.
Что церковь будет без
That's what
Христа,
Moody
без
predicted,
Святого
that the
Духа,
church would be with
будет
no Christ, no Holy
христианство без
Spirit,
спасения.
and Christianity would be with no salvation.
Ее некому защитить.
There is no one to protect her.
Настоящая
She
Божья
is
церковь, ее на земле некому защитить.
no
защитника
protect.
нет.
She cannot be
Она
defended. There is no
Абсолютно.
defender. She is
Потому что у нее нет на
helpless.
земле мужа.
Absolutely, because she has no husband on
Она
earth.
одинока.
She is lonely. She
Она
is
бедна.
single. She is poor.
И она приходит не к тому, кому хотелось бы прийти.
And
Она
she
приходит,
comes
чтобы
not
получить
to the
помощь.
one she would
не
want
может
to
оттуда
come. She
получить.
comes for help, but she is not able to
Она
get
несправедливо унижена.
assistance, aid. She's
Сегодня
unjustly
церковь, кто хочет, может
humiliated.
унизить. Легко.
And
Придут к вам и унизят.
anyone can humiliate the
Бог
church easily. They come,
ничего с
and
этим
if
не
God
сделаешь.
allows that, they
Потому
will
что так
humiliate you,
устроен
put you
этот мир.
down, and you cannot do anything with that because this is the way the world is made.
Она должна была унижаться из-за своего положения.
And she had to go low because of her position.
Но хорошая весть в том, что есть тот, кто ей
But
поможет.
the good news
И ступится.
is that there is one who will help, who will
Вы знаете,
intercede
сегодня
and
мы находимся в таком
protect her
тотальном положении,
and
в общем,
respond.
таком
Today
вместе
we are in
разломном.
this
Сегодня
total,
одну из сестер
totally
молитвенных я
breaking
просил
point.
молиться за себя серьезно.
And
Она
today I ask
дает
one of the
очень сильное
intercessors to
откровение.
pray for myself. Sometimes she gives a
попросил
really
ее
powerful revelation. So I ask her
молиться за то, чтобы
to pray
Бог послал мне еще
for
силу
me
сделать
that
его
God
работу.
sends me strength to do His work.
Потому что те вызовы, которые дает нам
Because the
сегодняшнее время, и
challenges
тот
that we face
как бы могучий такой
in this time,
тыл врага, который выходит
and the
сегодня против
front of the
очень
enemy
могущественный.
that comes against the church is quite powerful.
И те вызовы, которые сегодня
And the challenges
топят буквально, заваливают
that
церковь
are
христианскую,
actually drowning
они сегодня
the
побеждают.
church, they are
Церковь не
overwhelming, they're
справляется с этим.
overcoming. The church is not handling those
Она с
challenges.
интернетом-то справиться не может.
She's not able to cope
Она не
even with the
справляется, она не
internet.
отвечает, она не актуальна. в
She's
этом
not responding, she's not challenging, she's
люди
not
не слышат даже голоса
relevant
верующих,
in this
они проходят
world.
мимо,
People
потому что
are not
она для них не
hearing the
актуальна,
voices
она
of
не
the
несет
believer,
актуального
they're just passing
Христа.
by because the church is not carrying the relevant, the
несет ли она
actual,
Христа
vital Christ.
вообще? Или
And
несет она
is she at
образ,
all
который
carrying
она придумала
Christ,
себе?
or is she
Который не
carrying a
срабатывает. Вы
voice
не
that she's
замечали,
made
почему
up for herself?
так много
Don't you notice
того, что
that?
Бог обещал, но это не работает?
There is so much that God has promised, but
какой-то
it's not
сбой
working.
произошел.
Some wrong shifts
преувеличивать
happened.
чудеса, если они
Why exaggerate
Зачем
miracles
на
if
них
they are actually
ударять,
there? Why
фокусироваться,
to
если они
emphasize them,
естественным
focus on
образом у
them,
тебя присутствуют?
if they're natural way present with you?
Я думаю, что если бы мы ходили со Христом, то мы
I
не были
think
бы
if
постоянно
we
христиане.
walked with Christ, we wouldn't be
Если бы мы ходили
hysterical
рядом со
all the
Христом, мы
time.
были бы в
If we would, if we walked with
Не на постоянной
Christ,
сенсации строили бы
next
всё.
to Him, we would have
знаете,
rest
что-
and peace, and not like every day
Вот эта вдова, она
thrilling sensation or some other stuff.
символизирует
And you know, this
сегодняшнюю
widow
церковь. Она обнищала,
symbolizes
она потеряла
today's
мужа.
church. It has gotten poor.
Бога есть
It
обещание,
has
что
gotten
Он
her
вернется.
husband. God
Он
has
не
the promise
расторгал
that
с ней.
He would come back,
Он
and
придет к ней.
He never
те,
divorced
кто называл ее
her. He
вдовой,
would
они
return to
устыдятся,
her,
потому что они
and
видят
those
живого
who
мужа.
called her widow will be put to shame because they would
Он
see the
вернется и
living
покроет
God.
ее своей
He would return
мантией,
and He would cover her
восстановит
with
ее
His
честь.
mantle and restore her
Это не
honor.
старая вдова. Это одинокая.
And she's not an old widow, she's a
Он покроет ее
lonely
честь, она
widow.
будет рожать детей, и
Widow,
будет столько
she
детей,
would
что она даже не
restore her
мечтала.
honor, she would give birth to so many children that she
Это
would
обещание
never
Бога.
dream
Он
of.
может это
That's the
сделать.
promise of
Независимо
God.
от
He is
того,
able to do
как
that
сегодня
regardless
сильна
of
сатанинская сила на земле,
how
на наш взгляд.
powerful a satanic force
И люди веры
is
сегодня
today on
иногда
earth to
чувствуют
our
вот этот
view.
апостольский призыв
And today I feel this
в себе
apostolic
поднять эту силу волны
challenge to raise this power of wave of king-like faith
Чтобы
and
посмотрели все на
impart it to the people,
Бога
that everyone would
Сегодня мы
look.
вчера разбирали там
at
виды
God
творчества и
himself.
так далее, и увидели, что
We've been
тоже, когда мы делаем Христа
dwelling
своим,
and meditating
мы
upon
превращаемся в
some images in the
тоталитарный
arts, but saying
Вот
that
покажите
when we
Крамского.
make Christ
Христос.
our own, we
Здесь
turn
Делакруа
into
у
a
нас.
totalitarian
Если вы
regime.
видите,
We have
это
some
Христос моление о
paintings
чаше,
of cross.
Делакруа.
This is one of Delacroix
Но вот есть
praying for the
Крамской,
cup.
Христос пустыни. Покажите
And
его.
there is a painting by Kramskoy, a Russian artist.
Я ничего не имею против Крамского.
I don't have anything
Но
against
уже будучи
Kramskoy,
неверующим человеком,
but even when I
еще
was an
будучи неверующим, я
unbeliever,
рассматривал внимательно этот портрет.
still I would regard and view
Еще до
this
встречи со Христом
image, this
осознанно.
painting very closely.
Я еще не знал, что Бог в Сыне.
I would do that before I met
Интересно.
Christ, and
Это была
before I
одна из
knew
разломных
that God
картин,
has the
которая
power
одна из самых
bodily,
безнадежных и страшных картин, когда я
and
когда-либо
that was
видел.
one of the hopeless paintings I would ever sense
У меня
within
были также
myself.
другие тоже картины Христа.
I had
которых
other
я
paintings of
обратился к Богу
Christ before I came to him consciously, deliberately. Even take this Michelangelo one, this triumphant Christ. He's the thunder-like triumphant Christ. He's holding hand above, and Mary is above his arm. That's her place. And the whole universe is around the mighty Christ. And then Titian one of my favorite paintings, it used to be that one even before I believed. Two natures of human, Christ pure, looking straight through the one who is tempting him. Look at their hands. There's so much difference. The fine, pure palm hand of Christ and this harsh that is giving him the money. Disgusting image. What are we talking about today? She would come to that kind of judge, and he would not solve her problem. And really, this conflict, and there's one of our Christian philosophers, he was not even consistent in his views. He's not considered powerful. His attitude, his position was such that even if the way is kind of abstract and vague and unpredictable, in a peace and hardships, the logical breakdowns, the way is more safe than when you stay still, and you're preserved. Jesus said, I'm the way. And there's this turn, a row of conflicts. And the church should not be afraid to make mistakes. She's looking, searching for the truth. Because conflicts give birth to new hopes. But the fact that the church is totally hidden, it's leaving this conflict field, it's determined to be out of the society, out of the matters. She's just stepping aside and decides to wait for the better times. That's her major danger. Because I think that on the way it's quite more difficult to make mistake than when you stay still, closed, locked down at home. So I asked this prayer lady, intercessor, to pray for me. God gives her deep revelations concerning myself. Concerning the sphere of the spirit and the calling. I ask to pray that God gives me strength to overcome my own weaknesses and fears and gather the people of God in order to take our gaze and see the whole power and might of our God, see all His might, see the way He is, see how powerful our God is. And this poor widow came to the wrong place. But what's interesting here, she actually got him. For a while, for a long time, he wouldn't care, wouldn't give her help. And then he says, though I do not fear God nor regard men, yet because this spirit troubles me, I will avenge her. So we can get our good through him, not from him. She received the help from this godless judge. She received the good not from him, but through him. She received the good and justice. Satan wants to deprive us totally for our right for good and justice, but we come not to the man, but to the authority that is established by God. Do not lose the faith in that. God is reigning over the earth, over the whole universe. So this unrighteous judge, suddenly Holy Spirit comes upon him and he says, so I will defend him, avenge her, lest by her continual coming she weary me. That's his reasoning. And that's what we expect from God, not from the man. Then the Lord said,
Слышите, что говорит судья неправедный?
Hear what the unjust judge
Бог ли
said?
не защитит избранных своих,
And shall
воздающих
God
ему
not
день и
avenge
ночь?
his own
Хотя
elect to
имеет
cry
ли
out
защищать
day and
их?
night to him, though he bears
Сказываю
long
вам,
with
что
them?
подаст им защиту
I
вскоре.
tell you that he will
Значит,
avenge
Бог
them
защищает
speedily.
избранных. Слушайте, братья и
That
сестры.
means God avenges, he
Бог
protects his chosen ones.
защищает избранных.
God
Следующая мысль.
avenges,
Нужна молитва
defends
вместо
his
уныния и
elected.
ропота.
Another
Вместо того,
thought,
чтобы
a
становиться
prayer
кислым,
is important.
горьким,
Instead of
негативным,
grumbling,
токсичным,
instead of
нам
getting
нужна молитва
negative, toxic,
вместо
bitter,
уныния
we
и ропота.
need to pray instead of losing our hearts
Дальше
and
ответ
complaining.
может прийти позднее, нежели мы ожидаем. Он
Then
может
the
прийти не
answer
сразу,
can
но он
come
придет.
later than we expect, not just at once, but the answer,
необходима
the
вера и
response
терпение.
shall come.
Но
But
Сын
what we need
Человеческий
is faith
придя,
and
найдет ли
patience.
веру на земле?
And when the Son of Man comes
эти
on
новые
earth,
формы веры,
will he
новые
find faith?
надежды
So these
рождаются
new
только
forms of
через
faith and
конфликт,
hope can be birthed
борьбу
only
на пути.
through a conflict, through a
Когда мы
struggle
бьемся на
on the
пути,
way.
рождаются
When we
новые
fight
формы
on the
надежды.
way, new forms of hope are
Услышьте
being
меня, что я
born.
говорю.
Hear me what I'm
Только через
saying
эти
now.
конфликты и брань
Only
рождаются
through
новые
these
формы
conflicts
веры.
and
А нам
warfare,
сегодня
new
необходимы новые
forms
формы
of faith
веры
are born, and
и
we
новые
really
формы
need those
надежды.
new forms of hope and new forms of
И Господь сказал,
faith.
но Сын Человеческий,
And so
придя,
the Lord
найдет ли
says,
веру на земле? И я хочу,
Will the
чтобы в
Son of
нашем
Man
братстве, в
come
нашей церкви,
when he
во мне
comes,
самом,
find the
Господь
faith
нашел
on earth?
веру,
So
когда
I
придет на
desire that when he comes, he finds faith in me personally and in
Хочу
our
зачитать
brethren.
вам о суде неправедном.
And I
Сегодня
want to
мы получили
also
откровение,
read
что у человека
about
Божьего
the
был свиток.
unjust
Я верю, что
judgment.
Бог дал нам
And
этот
today
свиток.
we received the revelation that the
Но одно
man of God
зачитаю по
received a
отношению к этой
scroll.
проповеди.
And I will read just a passage that
Слово
concerns
неправедным судьям.
this
Все, кто будет встречаться на вашем
this
пути.
sermon.
Любой
A word to
начальствующий
the
от власти на
unrighteous
земле.
judge, anyone who
Такие
you
слова.
face on your way.
Он есть тот,
Such words.
который
He is the
восседает над кругом
one
земли,
who is above the circle of
и
earth,
живущие на ней, как
and its
саранча перед ним.
inhabitants are like grasshoppers before him.
Он распростер небеса, как
He
тонкую
is the one who
ткань,
stretches out the heavens like
и
a
раскинул
curtain
их, как
and
шатер для
spreads them
жилья.
out like a tent to
Он
dwell in.
обращает князей в
He brings the
ничто
princes to
и
nothing.
делает чем-то
He
пустым
makes the
судей
judges of the
земли.
earth useless.
Заболел человек раком, и все.
Whether a
Ушел
person gets a
скоропостижно,
cancer
в одну
and
ночь
he's
меняется
gone
всё.
very soon, it can be all
Он
changed
обращает
within
князей в
one
ничто,
night.
делает чем-то пустым
It
судей
makes the
земли.
judges of
Едва не
earth
посажены,
useless. Scarcely
едва
shall they be planted,
едва
scarcely
укоренился в
shall
земле,
they be
стол
sown,
их.
scarcely shall they
И
stop
как
their
только
take
он дохнул на
root
них, они
in the earth,
высохли,
when he
и
will also
вихрь
blow
унесся,
on
как
them, and
солому.
they will wither, and the
Кому же вы
whirlwind
уподобите
will take
меня?
them
И
away
с кем
like
сравните,
stubble.
говорит
To whom
святой.
then will you like me, and
Вот
to
в кого
whom
мы
shall
должны
I be
веровать.
equal, says the Holy One.
Вот так должны
This
мы
is the one we
молиться
should have
сегодня,
faith in.
как здесь
This is the
написано.
way we should pray.
И не
The way
словами,
it is written here,
а духом
not
нашим.
with the words even, but with our spirit.
Я чувствую дыхание Божие здесь.
I feel, I sense the
Это
breath
свиток,
of God here.
который
This
Господь
is
сегодня
the
дает нам.
scroll. This is what the
Мы
Lord is
выражали
giving
разные
to
типы.
us today.
Вот это Делакруа
And
мне
we've
нравится.
demonstrated different
Она
types
нежная.
of image.
Просто
I like
свежая.
this one of Delacroix.
Он молится
It's
сам.
just tender and
есть
fresh
надежда.
and is
Он
praying. And he is so
Мой
full of
Христос
light,
полный надежды. Он
full
свет.
of hope. My Christ
Он
is
смотрит
full of
светло
hope.
и
He is
высоко.
full of light.
Он
He
никогда
looks
не бывает
forward.
жалким и
He looks
ничтожным.
up high. He is
Он
never
всегда
greedy
славен.
or pitiful.
Дайте нам
He is
такого
always
Христа, и
in
мы последуем за
glory.
ним.
Give
Дайте
us
своим
such
народам,
Christ, and we
странам такого Христа,
will
и они
follow him.
побегут за ним.
Give us
Не за
such
тем идем,
Christ in your nations
не к
and
тому
cities, and we
ведем.
will follow, and nations will
очень
follow
серьезный
him.
разговор.
We come
И
to
мы не
the
должны
wrong
его
one.
закончить.
And this is very serious conversation, and we should not forget and throw it
Поэтому
out.
путь важнее стояния через сохранение.
Therefore, the way is more important
Кого ты
than
выбираешь?
preserving yourself through
Ожидающую
keeping
вдову
still.
этой милости, которая
Whom
ждет
do you
от праведного
choose,
судьи,
the
как от человека?
expectant
Или
widow who's just
настойчивая вдова,
expecting and waiting for justice from an ungodly man or a persistent woman. She has this spirit and image of a persistent widow. Be a persistent church, become a persistent widow. She never steps away, continues to pray and not lose her heart. And I really like this topic today, this theme, a persistent widow. And we are not a widow, we are the bride of Christ. It's just that the bridegroom is a little bit taking his time. And we always want to restore things. But perhaps there is this Christ who is ascending, he is rising, who is abandoning these ruins of human history, and he is rising up in understanding and his own revelation. How to respond to the challenges of the world. And the church is running around just to help this world. Such kindness, such goodness, but how to save this world and not just help it. And things keep changing the other way around. The world is feeling compassion to the church. And the church is just dragging. Therefore, today there is this great conflict of new and old Christianity. I realize it, I feel it. It has gotten to the point of a resolve, and we realize that a transition must be made. Many of us feel this deepest kind of conflict, deep kind of people who love Christ with all their hearts. They are in danger of feeling devastated and disappointed, and just going even into depression, especially if they are in the wrong communities. It's very important to realize that this conflict of new and old image of Christ, Christianity is happening. It's really important and vital to gain this new image of a Christian, of a believer. It's not just a sect kind of person who's just mumbling, memorizing things, or not any kind of philosopher either, who's just quoting some weird philosophers of 19th century. They were half esoteric. What kind of believer is this new person? You say apostolic prophetic, but what do you mean by that? Well, I don't know, and do not be surprised by that. I know one thing, that he is the one who, even if he doesn't see him, he follows his voice. He said, and I turned around to see the one whose voice it was. And this old image of this old wineskin of a believer, it doesn't receive this kind of church. But that old church is dull, boring, and uninteresting. What have we caught? What have we lost? Think about that, dear people of God. I invite you into this conflict zone, into this journey, into this way of pits, of fallings, but just don't stand still, don't sit at home. We have become uninteresting. And this expectant old widow, I see these two types of widow. One is an old lady just sitting, not taking care of herself, being depressed, and just waiting when the snow comes upon her face. Well, of course she's praying in the right way, going to the right church. I have a good pastor, he's a good man. And another one who is persistent. And what is this persistency? This is what we are to decide. May God bless us. These images of Christ, I want to share a couple more, just to reflect on them. It's not the painter, but it's the Christ that we believe in and the Christ that we carry. This is Michelangelo. You know, I've seen the original of this image. It's quite much like this. And this is much closer to me than that one. This is much closer to my spirit. Well, you can say, that, yes, it was the wilderness. No, he is always triumphant. Here, everything is pure, Titian Christ. And he was an Italian. Oh, you believe in Italian Christ? Yes, I do. Well, not Italian, but all-consuming Christ. Also Titian one. El Greco, Spain. See how deep people went in. Well, this one recently discovered by Leonardo and Raphael, Russian, Nikolai Ge, is the good one, son of man, but so powerful, he's so dangerous. This is much closer. And this is another one by Ge. This is very dangerous, this is very powerful. Well, dear brothers and sisters, it's not any art lesson. This one is by Rembrandt. This is not any arts class, though arts is good too, especially when it's a building. Just think what they have made with the Christ image, how will the world follow. So we will go into the scroll of Isaiah 40, and we want to be filled with the great God. When we see Him, when we see the one, the way who He is, He said, I am who I am. I am who I am. And today, sometimes we see the one who is not. I am who I am. But through Him, everything began to be. And nothing happens because He is not the one. But to see the one who is, who He is, it's not in vain that His name is I am who I am.